Hollywood has seen its fair share of rivalries, but when Keanu Reeves' name is involved, people pay attention for a different reason. Known for his calm nature and unshakable kindness, Reeves isn't the type to hold grudges or start feuds. For over 4 decades, he has built a reputation as one of the most decent men in the business, the actor who treats every crew member with respect, who donates quietly to hospitals, who lives simply despite his fame. But even someone like Keanu has limits. There was one moment in his career when silence turned into disappointment, and disappointment into distance. It wasn't about ego, fame, or money. It was about something deeper: respect. And the actor who crossed that invisible line would become the one person Reeves could never see himself working with again. The childhood that built a gentleman. Before the fame, before the Matrix, before the quiet smiles that became his trademark, Keanu Reeves was a boy who learned about pain early. Born on September 2, 1964 in Beirut, Lebanon, Keanu spent his first years surrounded by instability. His father, Samuel, left when he was only 3, leaving his mother, Patricia, a British costume designer, to raise him and his sister alone. They moved constantly, first to Australia, then to New York, and finally to Toronto. With every move came a new school, a new accent, and a sense of not belonging. Dyslexia made reading hard for him, and rebellion came naturally. He was expelled from several schools, not because he was cruel, but because he was restless. Hockey became his escape, a dream he chased until a serious injury ended it. That moment changed everything. Acting appeared almost by accident. A school play, a few commercials, then a job hosting a Canadian TV show called Going Great. At 19, he left for Los Angeles with nothing but a dream and a borrowed green card. The Hollywood he entered in the mid-'80s was cruel and calculated. Agents told him his name was too ethnic and urged him to change it. For a short while, he tried. Chuck Spadina, K.C. Reeves, even Page Templeton III. But every time he introduced himself, his mouth betrayed him. Hi, I'm Keanu. That choice, to keep his real name, would become symbolic of the man he'd always be. Someone who refused to bend for fame. What came next was a slow rise through films like Youngblood, Dangerous Liaisons, and the breakout hit Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure in 1989. By the time the 1990s arrived, Keanu Reeves was no longer just another Hollywood newcomer. He was a name that audiences loved, humble, awkward, and genuine. But life, as he would learn, doesn't reward kindness without testing it first. Friendship, loss, and the lesson of River Phoenix. In 1989, during the filming of Parenthood, Keanu shared scenes with Martha Plimpton, who happened to be dating a young actor named River Phoenix. Instead of rivalry, something unexpected happened. Keanu and River became brothers. They bonded over motorcycles, music, and a mutual discomfort with Hollywood superficiality. When director Gus Van Sant was casting My Own Private Idaho in 1991, River's agent refused to let him even read the script, fearing it would damage his image. Keanu didn't accept that. He got on his motorcycle in Toronto and rode 1,300 miles to Florida just to hand River the script himself. River read it, loved it, and agreed to do the film, but only if Keanu joined him. That kind of loyalty defined Reeves. But just 2 years later, tragedy struck. On October 31, 1993, River Phoenix collapsed outside the Viper Room in Los Angeles after a drug overdose. He was only 23. Keanu, filming Speed at the time, was devastated. Friends said he rode his motorcycle for days, alone, trying to make sense of the loss. He rarely spoke of it again. Years later, when asked, he simply said, "I hate speaking about him in the past tense." That grief became part of Keanu's soul. It shaped the way he saw Hollywood, its excess, its cruelty, its indifference. He became even quieter, more private. To the public, he was the sad Keanu sitting alone on a park bench. But in truth, he was a man who had learned the hardest lesson of fame, that not everyone gets to live long enough to be remembered. This is also where his connection to another actor, Matthew Perry, began indirectly. Because both men had known River, and one day, decades later, River's name would drag them into a controversy no one saw coming, when the joke went too far. By 2022, Matthew Perry was ready to tell his truth. Friends, Lovers, and The Big Terrible Thing was supposed to be a raw, redemptive story, the memoir of a man who had stared down death and lived to talk about it. Perry had nearly died in 2019 when his colon burst from opioid abuse, leaving him in a coma for 2 weeks. He spent 5 months in the hospital and went through 14 surgeries. When he began writing, he wanted to be honest about everything: the pain, the fame, the loneliness. But in the middle of that honesty, there was one passage that felt like poison. In a chapter reflecting on his early career, Perry reminisced about working with River Phoenix on A Night in the Life of Jimmy Reardon back in 1988. He described Phoenix with genuine admiration, calling him a beautiful man inside and out, too beautiful for this world. But then came the line that no one could believe he'd written: "It always seems to be the really talented guys who go down." Why is it that the original thinkers like River Phoenix and Heath Ledger die, but Keanu Reeves still walks among us? The sentence landed like a punch to the gut. Readers weren't just shocked, they were hurt. For many, Keanu Reeves wasn't just another actor. He was a symbol of grace and decency in an industry that often rewards arrogance. To use his name in a comparison about who deserves to live felt cruel, and it wasn't an isolated jab. Later, when writing about the death of comedian Chris Farley, Perry repeated the same phrase, again singling out Reeves. When the excerpts leaked online in late October 2022, the internet erupted. Headlines didn't focus on Perry's recovery or his honesty about addiction. They focused on his cruelty toward Keanu Reeves. Twitter lit up with thousands of furious comments. "You come for Keanu, you lose the internet," one fan wrote. Others called the remark heartless, bizarre, and proof that fame can rot empathy. Even inside Hollywood, there was confusion. Perry and Reeves had no known conflict, no shared project, and barely any personal interaction. They were neighbors in Los Angeles, but had never worked together or been photographed in the same place. For Perry to name him so pointedly, not once, but twice, felt intentional. Some wondered if it was jealousy, others thought it was bitterness disguised as dark humor. But whatever the motive, the damage was done. And while Perry's publisher tried to shift the conversation back to his recovery story, it was too late. Within days, the book's release, meant to be a comeback, had turned into a controversy. And the man he had unintentionally provoked, the quiet and gentle Keanu Reeves, did exactly what no one else in Hollywood would have done. He said nothing. That silence, calm, deliberate, and dignified, became its own statement. It was the moment the world realized that Keanu Reeves didn't just play heroes on screen, he lived like one. Apology, silence, and the street they shared. In the weeks after his memoir hit shelves, Matthew Perry watched as his redemption tour turned into a public relations nightmare. The headlines were no longer about survival or recovery. They were about one line. One cruel, unnecessary line about Keanu Reeves. The internet's collective anger didn't fade. It grew louder every day. Perry's team scrambled to do damage control, but the question everyone was asking remained the same. Why Keanu? By April 2023, Perry finally addressed the backlash head-on during an appearance at the Los Angeles Times Festival of Books. Standing before a crowded auditorium, he admitted what the world already knew. "I said a stupid thing," he told the audience. "It was a mean thing to do. I've apologized publicly to him. Any future versions of the book will not have his name in it." He went on to reveal something few people knew, that he and Keanu lived on the same street. The audience laughed nervously at the irony, but the fact only made the situation stranger. In a separate statement to Deadline, Perry tried to explain himself. "I'm actually a big fan of Keanu," he said. "I just chose a random name. My mistake." "I apologize. I should have used my own name instead." But to most people, that explanation felt hollow. You don't accidentally choose the name of a man you live near, a man famous for kindness, a man who lost the same friend you're mourning in the very same paragraph. It sounded less like a random mistake and more like something deeply personal that Perry couldn't articulate. Or wouldn't. Through it all, Keanu Reeves remained silent. He didn't issue a statement, didn't acknowledge the apology, didn't even let his representatives comment. There were no subtle digs, no sarcastic responses, no social media reactions, just quiet. But those close to him described his response as disappointed, but not surprised. Reeves had seen enough of Hollywood to know that fame makes people say strange things. What mattered to him wasn't revenge or reputation. It was peace. Those who have worked with Reeves say that his silence wasn't avoidance. It was his form of grace. To him, engagement would only feed negativity. Instead, he chose distance, emotional and professional. Privately, he told friends he wouldn't collaborate with Perry in any future capacity, not as an act of spite, but as an act of self-respect. For Keanu Reeves, forgiveness doesn't always mean reopening the door. Sometimes it means closing it quietly and walking away. In an industry built on feuds, gossip, and ego, that restraint is rare. He didn't have to humiliate anyone or defend himself. His silence became his statement, louder and more dignified than any public feud could ever be. And as Perry's apology faded into the noise of Hollywood chatter, Keanu's quiet dignity stood untouched, a reminder that sometimes doing nothing is the most powerful response of all. Why the world took Keanu's side. The public reaction was unlike anything Hollywood had seen in years. Fans flooded social media with messages of support, sharing stories that painted a consistent picture. Keanu Reeves, the good guy who never fakes it. There were countless examples. The viral 2015 clip of him offering his subway seat to a woman with a heavy bag. The story of him returning to a gas station just to sign a fan's receipt because he had no paper. The time he waited in the rain outside his own movie wrap party because he didn't want to cut the line. Colleagues spoke up too. Sandra Bullock revealed that once, after she mentioned she had never tried champagne or truffles, Keanu showed up at her door with both. No cameras, no press, just kindness. Crew members from The Matrix confirmed he had gifted each of them Harley-Davidson motorcycles as a thank you for their work. During John Wick 3, he even insisted that two martial artists' characters should survive because he respected their skill too much to have them killed off. This is the man Matthew Perry had mocked, and that's why the backlash was so fierce. People weren't defending a celebrity, they were defending decency itself. In a world where ego and scandal dominate headlines, Keanu Reeves had become proof that goodness could survive fame. And when someone tried to tarnish that, people took it personally. Reeves never commented publicly, but those close to him said he was grateful for the outpouring of support. He didn't need revenge. The world had spoken for him. And sometimes, that's the best kind of justice. Healing, love, and moving forward. By the time Matthew Perry passed away unexpectedly in October 2023, the controversy had faded, but the memory of it lingered. Reeves didn't make any public statement, though sources said he wished peace for Perry and felt sympathy for his struggles. In truth, Keanu had long moved past the anger. At 60 years old, he continues to live the way he always has, quietly, humbly, without pretense. He's found happiness with artist Alexandra Grant, his partner since 2019. They met while working on Ode to Happiness and built a bond rooted in creativity, respect, and understanding. For a man who had endured the death of his daughter Ava in 1999 and the tragic car crash that took Jennifer Syme in 2001, finding peace again was nothing short of a miracle. Those close to him say he no longer lets negativity near his life. He still supports his sister Kim, who survived leukemia, still rides his motorcycles, still plays bass with his band Dog Star. And when he gives interviews, his answers are short, thoughtful, and real. Asked what happens when we die, he once said simply, "I know that the ones who love us will miss us." That line, like much of his life, isn't about bitterness or fame. It's about grace, the kind that comes from surviving pain and choosing kindness anyway. Maybe that's why the world loves him so deeply, because Keanu Reeves isn't just a movie star. He's proof that you can face loss, betrayal, and disappointment and still walk among us with dignity intact. Keanu Reeves may never speak about this feud again, and he doesn't need to. His silence says everything about the man he is. Forgiveness doesn't always mean forgetting, and respect doesn't require revenge. But what about you? Do you think Matthew Perry truly meant what he wrote, or was it just a tragic mistake from a troubled man? Let us know what you think in the comments, and if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more untold Hollywood stories.